Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Is anybody out there? Hello. Are we looking good? Are we looking fine? If you can hear me, give me a holler in the chat. Give me a classic holler in the chat. Give me a holler in the chat. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Okay, let's, okay, we're about to start, actually. Here in a second. Cool. Hello in the chat. This is the road to the PlayStation 5. What a road it's been. What a road it's been the past couple days to get to the PlayStation 5. What a long road ahead of us to the PlayStation 5. Will we make it? We better, because Michael Cerny, something Cerny in the last name, is going to reveal the tech specs. We have been salivating at the mouth because we're either infected or because we're so pumped for what the PlayStation 5 is going to reveal. I'm salivating because I had a great time with the PlayStation 4, an amazing time with the PlayStation 4, and I am all in on the PlayStation 5. What is up? I can't even say your name. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce it. Could you put how to pronounce your name, Bumblebee person, in the chat? But welcome. Thanks for joining us. And welcome all. Now, are we going to get a price today? I don't know. Are we going to get a price? I don't know here. Are you going to buy it? I think at the end of this tech spec thing we'll know. But hey, as I was just saying, the PlayStation 4... Is that too loud? Is this... You know, let me turn that down a little bit for you guys. Or let me know if I need to change some stuff. But I had an amazing time with the PlayStation 4. So I'm totally into whatever PlayStation 5 is. So I think we're about to go. I'm excited. Woo, PlayStation 5 time. A little giddy.
Hi. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the talk that we had planned for GDC.
I thought they were going to say this. They were going to cancel this.
Some super exciting news about PS5. And who better to bring...
Are those even real people in there? I don't know why my scroll bar is there.
Over to you, Mark.
Let me see if I can't fix that.
There will be lots of chances later on this year to look at the PlayStation 5 games.
Okay, sorry, you guys just get to see that.
A bit about our goals for the PlayStation 5 hardware and how they influenced the development of the console.
Are they acting like there's people there? They put little silhouettes.
For 7 years, a console arrives with substantially new capabilities.
Use a quiet speaker. I gotta turn it up here.
Developers, hopefully not too overwhelming, and soon there's...
Am I hyped for Cyberpunk? Yes. I am.
Now, it used to be that as a console designer, you'd somehow
Very
intuit what would be the best set of capabilities for the new console, and then build it in complete secrecy. For the PlayStation consoles, that period lasted through PlayStation 3, a powerful and groundbreaking console, but also one that caused quite a lot of heartache, as it was initially difficult to develop games for. So, starting with PlayStation 4, we've taken a different approach, roughly centered around 3 principles.
They freaking killed it with the
First
PlayStation 4. Oh my gosh.
Which is to say that a lot of what we put into a console derives directly from the needs and aspirations of the game creators. We definitely do have some ideas of our own, but at the core of our philosophy for designing consoles is that game players are here for the fantastic games. which is to say that game creators matter. Anything we can do to make life easier for the game creators, or
I'm cracking
realize
up
that
over the fake
we
people
will
here.
do. So about once every 2 years, I take a tour of the industry.
The
I
four
go to
guys that
various
showed up to
developers
the
and publishers,
quarantined
sit down
Sony building.
and discuss how they're doing with the current consoles and what they'd like to see in future consoles. This requires weeks on the road, as reaching the bulk of the game creators involves talking to well over 100
Great
people,
crowd.
something like 24.
Great crowd tonight, guys.
And it is incredibly valuable. By the way, the feature most requested by the developers, that was an SSD, which we were very happy to put in the hardware, but a lot of problem solving was required. I'll be doing a deep dive on the SSD and surrounding systems later on in this talk.
Dude, this guy made ASMR.
It's also key
His
to
voice
make a
created it.
generational leap while keeping the console sufficiently familiar to game developers. I think about this in terms of balancing evolution and revolution. Now, with PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, the target was a revolution each time with a brand new feature set. That was great in many ways, but time for the developers to get up and running got longer with each console. In the past, I've called this time to triangle. Here's what I had for those 3 consoles. To be clear, I'm
Like
not
I'm
talking about
hypnotized by this guy's voice.
Developers will be ambitious,
Jizu.
and it may take them 6 years or so to realize their vision. What I'm talking about is that dead time before graphics and other aspects of game development are up and running, and trying to minimize that. On the other hand, if we're trying to reduce that dead time to 0, that means the hardware architecture can't change at all. We're handcuffed. We need to judge for each feature what value it adds and whether it's worth the increase in developer time needed to support it. So with PlayStation 4, we were able to strike a pretty good balance between performance and familiarity. We got required learning back to PlayStation 1 levels. With PS5, the GPU was definitely the area we felt the most tension between adding new features and
What's up,
keeping a
Maximo?
familiar programming model.
You are
Ultimately,
Spanish.
I think we've ended up with something under a month of getting up to speed. That feels like we're striking about the right balance.
Hello from
I'll
America.
go into a bit more detail later today about our philosophy with the GPU and the specific feature set that resulted from it. It's also very important for us, as the hardware team, to find new dreams, by which I mean something other than CPU performance, GPU performance, and the amount of RAM. The increase in graphics performance over the past 2 decades has been astonishing, but there are other areas in which we can innovate and provide significant value.
Have you been crying or just tired? Maybe a little both, M.
That's
Dorby.
why SSD was very much on our
And
list of
Dobry.
directions to explore,
Well, welcome to the chat.
regardless of what came out of the conversations with game developers and publishers. The biggest feature in this category is the custom engine for audio. That's today's final topic. The push for vastly
Hello,
improved
Anas.
audio, and in particular,
Welcome.
3D audio, isn't something that came out of the developer meetings. It's much more the case that we had a dream of what might be possible 5 years from now, and then worked out a number of steps we could take to set us on that path. So here again are the 3 principles, the first being enabling the desires of developers to drive the hardware design. To
The
me,
4 guys in
SSD
front are really
is the
digging
key
it.
to the next generation. It's a game changer. And it was the #1 ask from developers for PlayStation 5. As in, we know it's probably impossible, but can you put an SSD in it? That was a discussion we were also having internally. It was clear that the presence of a hard drive in every PlayStation 4 was having a positive impact. A lot of things that would simply have been impossible at Blu-ray disc speeds were now possible. At the same time, though, in 2015 and 2016, when we were having these conversations, developers were already banging up against the limits of the hard drive, and a lot of developer time was being spent designing around slow load speeds.
Get that SSD, baby.
Focus in on just one number here, which is how long it takes to load a gigabyte of data from a hard drive. The difficulty being that hard drives are neither particularly fast nor flexible. If all your data is in one block, which is frankly not very likely, you can load 50 to 100 megabytes a second, depending on where the data is located on the hard drive. Let's assume it's on the outer edge, which means loading a gigabyte takes 10 seconds. If you compress your game packages, you can fit more data on the Blu-ray disc and also effectively boost your hard drive read speed by the compression ratio. We support zlib decompression.
This guy should be everybody's online teacher right now.
Something like 50% more data on the disc and 50% higher.
He'll lull you into learning.
speed. Unfortunately, though,
I go in and watch
it's
for a few
highly
minutes,
likely
but I
that
usually
data
have
is
no
scattered
time
around
because
in various files
I
on
get
the hard drive.
home late from
As
school.
well
My
as
teachers are
source
moving
from
things
multiple
online,
locations
so I guess no extended break.
So lots of seeks are needed.
Yeah, a lot of
2
people
to
are
50-ish milliseconds each.
getting
My
some
rule
weird
of
breaks
thumb
right now with
is that
spring
the
break.
hard drive is spending 2/3 of its time seeking, and only 1/3 of its time actually loading data. Putting all of that together, a gigabyte is very roughly 20 seconds to load from a hard drive. Now, a gigabyte is not much data. Games are using 5 or 6 gigabytes of RAM on PlayStation 4, so boot times and load times can get pretty grim. Or to put that differently, as a player, you wait for the game to boot, wait for the game to load, wait for the level to
This guy might be the
reload every
smartest
time you
person on
die,
planet
and
Earth.
you wait for what
He has
is
so much
euphemistically
knowledge in his
called fast
head, you can
reload.
tell.
And all of that leads
He's
to
holding back, I think,
what if we could
his
have not
knowledge.
just an SSD, but a blindingly fast SSD? If we could load 5
Instantaneous.
gigabytes a second from it, what would change?
Love
Now,
SSDs.
SSDs are completely different from hard drives. They don't have seeks as such. If
I went
have
from a
5
laptop
gigabyte a second
that did not have an
you can
SSD
read
to
data
one that had
from
an
1,000
SSD, and
different
it's
locations in that
can't
second,
go back.
pretty much at speed. As for time to load a gigabyte, this is next gen we're talking about, so memory is bigger. Instead, we should be asking how long to load 2 gigabytes. And the answer is about 1/4 of a second.
Oh
That's
my
amazing.
gosh.
We're talking 2 orders of magnitude, meaning very roughly 100 times faster. Which means at 5 gigabytes a second for the SSD, the potential is
Dude, that's
that
what my brain's gonna look like when I
0.6
see this thing
there
in
are
person.
no load screens. The game just fades down while loading a half dozen gigabytes.
That's the
and
gigabytes going through.
Same for a reload. You're immediately back in the action after you die. And fast travel becomes so fast it's blink and you miss it. As game creators,
4
we go
people
from
there
trying to
digging it.
distract the
They
player from
are
how long
digging it.
fast travel is taking, like those Spider-Man subway rides, to being so blindingly fast that we might even have to slow that transition down.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty cool, right? But for me, this is
So
not
fast
the
you have to
primary
slow
reason
the
to
game
change from a
down.
hard drive to an SSD. The primary reason for
Maybe we need an
fast
SSD in our
is that it
brain so
gives
we could
the game design
take it all in.
freedom. Or to put that differently, with a hard drive, the 20 seconds that it takes to load a gigabyte can sabotage the game that the developer is trying to create. I think almost all of us in the room have experienced this, maybe in different ways. Say we're making an adventure game and we have 2 rich environments where we each want enough textures and models to fill memory. Which you can do as long as you have a long staircase or elevator ride or a windy corridor where you can ditch the old assets and then take 30 seconds or so to load the new assets. Having a 30-second elevator ride is a little extreme. More realistically, we'd probably chop.
We are deleting
into
elevator
smaller
rides.
pieces, and then
There will be
use
no
the
elevators in
information
any
to
game.
sight lines and run speeds, like we did for Haven City when we were making Jack 2. The game is 20 years old, but not much has changed.
Ugh.
All those twisty.
Don't tell me that. Oh my gosh.
There's a whole subset of level
Jack
design
2 is
benefits that
20
this
years
will work,
old.
but still, it's a giant distraction for
No,
a
it came
team
out
that
in
just wants to make
03.
their game. So
It's only
when I talk
17.
about the dream of an SSD, part of the reason for that 5 gigabyte a second target was to eliminate loads,
Ugh.
but also part of the reason for that target was streaming. As in, what if the SSD is so fast that as the player is turning around, it's possible to load textures for everything behind the player in that split second? If
Oh
you
my
figure that
gosh.
it takes half a second to turn, that's 4 gigabytes of compressed data you can load. That sounds about right for next gen. Anyway, back to the hard drive. Another strategy for increasing effective read speed is to make big sequential chunks of data. For example, we might group all the data together for each city block. That removes most of the seeks, and the streaming gets faster. But there's a downside too, which is that
Hide and seek
frequently
could be
used
fun.
data is included in many chunks and therefore
Next
is
gen
on the
hide
hard
and
drive
seek.
many, many times. Marvel's Spider-Man uses this strategy, and though it works very well.
The Spider-Man demo they showed was freaking
There's a
nuts.
massive duplication.
There was
as a
no
result.
loading.
Some of the objects, like mailboxes or news racks, are on the hard drive 400 times. What I'm describing here are things that cramp a creative director's style. Either level design gets a little bit boring,
Cramping
in
my
places,
style.
or the data is duplicated so many times that it no longer fits on the Blu-ray disc. And you end up with hard limits.
Are
on
we
the
gonna
player's
see
run
the
speed
box
or
today?
driving
Now
speed.
I'm not
The
thinking
player
we're
can't
seeing no
go faster
box.
than the load speed from the hard drive.
What do you guys think?
And finally,
I need to
I'm sure
see a-
many of
I
you have
wanna see a
noticed that
rectangle.
for patch download, the PlayStation 4 will sometimes take a long time to install the patch. That's
You
because
say that
if
again.
just part of a file has been changed, the new data can be downloaded pretty quickly. But before the game boots up, a brand new file has to be constructed that includes the changed portion. Otherwise,
This
the
has
change
sucked
would
all
pass
generation,
the
and
Even
last
so,
gen,
you can
just these updates. So if they can
occasionally
figure out a way to
switch
make
to
these...
title.
Sony didn't make it better to where if you're installing a game, it only downloads like 10%
With an
of it,
SSD,
and then you can start
no
playing and
sense.
it's downloading
So,
the
no
rest in
need
the
to make
background,
brand
but
new files with the changes incorporated in them.
gosh almighty, I hate
No
updating crap.
installs as you know them today.
Hate updating.
There's yet one more benefit.
We got better this
System
gen,
memory
but
can be used much more efficiently. On PlayStation 4,
when you just want to come in and
data
just play
on
the
hard
game, you
drive
know.
feels very
Correct
distant
gen.
and difficult to use. By the time
Okay,
you
RAM,
realize
we're talking
you need a
RAM.
piece of data, it's much too late to go out and load it. So system memory has to contain all of the data that could be used in the next 30 seconds or so of gameplay. That means a lot of the 8 gigabytes of system memory is idle. It's just waiting there to be potentially used. On PlayStation 5, though, the SSD is very close to being like more RAM. Typically, it's fast enough that when you realize you need a piece of data, you can just load it from the SSD and use it. There's no need to have lots of data parked in system memory waiting to potentially be used. A different way of saying that is that most of RAM is working on the game's behalf. This is one of the reasons that 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 feels right for PlayStation 5. The presence
It
of the
just
SSD
feels right.
reduces the need for a massive intergenerational increase in size. So, back to the dream of the SSD.
There's the
Here's
4
the
people, they're chilling
Boot
out
the
still.
game in a second. No load screens. Design freedom, meaning no twisted
This is so
packages or
surreal.
long corridors.
Seeing that they
More
put
game
4
on
people
disk,
here, like this
more
is going to be a
game on
big
the
event.
SSD. And finally, those patch installs go away. The reality, though, is that the SSD is just one piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of places where bottlenecks can occur.
So is this supposed to be a GDC thing? They said at the very beginning, sorry, we're not able to do that, the
If I use
GDC.
an SSD
Or maybe that's
10
supposed to be
times
upcoming.
the
I don't know when
size of
GDC was
hard
supposed to
drive,
be. I
I
don't know.
probably see only double the loading speed, if that. For PlayStation 5, our goal was not just that the SSD itself be 100 times faster. It was that game loads and streaming would be 100 times faster. So every
Echo Fox,
potential
maybe
bottleneck
this is
was
an online
addressed.
class and not a
And there are
conference. Yeah, we've been tricked into learning.
Let's look at checking.
Oh my
What
gosh.
happens when its overhead gets 100 times larger?
MX equals
Checking
A
is
over
a pretty
B,
simple process. Data is
1/2 or
loaded
something
into
times
system
A,
memory
B.
from a hard
Is that what it
drive
is?
SSD. It's examined.
Better have it
Few
memorized
values
for the
are tweaked
test.
To check it in, and then it's moved to its final location. At the SSD speeds we're talking about, that last part, moving the data, meaning copying it from one location to another, takes roughly an entire
At the end, there will be a test, and everybody in the chat will have to pass it.
If all the overheads get 100 times larger,
If you want to get a
that will
PlayStation
triple the
5.
frame rate as soon as the player moves, and that massive
We need,
stream of data
Jarvis
starts
says, we need Def Jam Fight for New
so
York.
to solve all
Man,
that, we built a lot of custom hardware, namely
I've not heard that
custom
game in a
flash
while.
controller and a number of custom units in our name shell. The flash controller in the SSD was designed for smooth and bottleneck-free operation, but also with games in mind. For example, there are 6 levels of priority when reading from the SSD. Priority
I do
is
think
very
all
important.
these games coming out right now on
Player
PlayStation
heading
4,
into
Last
some
of Us
new location in
2,
the world, and the game
Cyberpunk,
a few
Final
gigabytes
Fantasy
of
7
data.
remake.
And while those textures are
Man, they're gonna have a remastered version in like
a few dying words.
a couple months.
Having multiple priority levels lets
Coming
you
or
find dying words.
by this holiday, going into early 2021.
On
They're
one
gonna
side,
have
that
those
flash
ported
controller
over in
connects
a
to
like
actual
a
flash drives that supply
4K version,
To
8K
reach our
version. I don't know
bandwidth
what this
target
thing's
of
gonna do.
5 gigabytes a second, we ended up with a 12-channel interface. 8 channels wouldn't be enough.
Wow, they're really
The
spilling their
resulting
beans on the
bandwidth
specs.
speed
I mean,
was
they said they were going
actually
to.
5.5 gigabytes a second. With a 12-channel interface, the most natural size that emerges for an SSD is 825 gigabytes. The key question for us was, is that enough? I mean, it's tempting to add more, but Flash certainly doesn't
Mass
fit you.
does that with
And we have a responsibility
Sorry.
to our gaming audience to be cost-effective with
Whoops.
regards to what we put in the console. Ultimately, we resolved this question by looking at the play patterns of a broad
8K.
array of gamers.
Just got
We
4K,
examined
so that's great.
specific games that they were playing over the course of a weekend or a week or a month, and whether that set of games would fit properly on the SSD. We were able to establish that the friction caused by reinstalls or redownloads would be quite low, and so we locked in on that 825 gigabyte size. while also preparing multiple strategies so that those who want more storage can add it. I'll go through the details in a moment. Back to the flash controller.
Sorry guys, I
On the
don't mean to
other
be
side, it
texting here.
connects to our main custom chip via 4 lanes of
Just
J4
hit
PCIe.
11,400
And
subs.
inside the
Congrats,
custom chip
Jarvis.
is a pretty hefty unit dedicated to I/O. Before we talk about what that does, let's talk compression for a moment. PlayStation 4 used zero.
Give me 1 second,
compression
guys.
format.
Sorry, I've got
We
to.
decided to use it again on PlayStation 5, but on my 2017 tour of developers, I learned about a new format called Kraken from Rad Game Tour.
Kraken.
It's like zlib's smarter cousin. Simple, similar types of algorithms, but about 10% better compression, which is pretty big. That means 10% more game on the UHD Blu-ray disc or on the SSD. Kraken had only been out for a year, but it was already becoming a de facto industry standard. Half of the teams I talked to were either using it or getting ready to evaluate it. So we hustled and built a custom decompressor into the I/O unit, one capable of handling over 5 gigabytes of Kraken format input data a second. After decompression, that typically becomes 8 or 9 gigabytes, but the unit itself is capable of outputting as much as 22 gigabytes a second if the data happen to compress particularly well. By the way, in terms of performance, that custom decompressor equates to 9 of our Zen 2 cores. That's what it would take to decompress the Kraken stream with a conventional CPU. There's a lot more in the custom I/O unit, including a dedicated
Sorry about that.
DNA controller. The game can direct exactly.
You need to make more dynamic presentation. Yeah,
This equates to another
this-
Zen 2 core or two.
I had a feeling this was going to be like this because
Its primary purpose is to remove check-in.
right at the beginning, and it's like, oh yeah, this is more for GDC audience. So this was more for like game developers are going to be like, oh shoot, on this. Whereas like consumer stuff, like we're just trying to play games.
One of the coprocessors is dedicated to.
This is more towards the
This lets
developers.
us
This
bypass
this little
traditional
keynote thing.
I/O and its bottlenecks when reading from the SSD. The
It's
other
kind of
is
cool for
responsible
consumers,
reading.
but yeah, it's kind of dry at
It
times.
doesn't sound like anything related to the SSD, but a lot of developers map and remap memory as part of file I/O, and this too can become a bottleneck. There are coherency engines to assist the coprocessors. Coherency comes up a lot in places. Probably the biggest coherency issue is stale data in the GPU caches. Flushing all of the GPU caches whenever the SSD is read is an unattractive option. It could really hurt the GPU performance. So we've implemented a gentler way of doing things, where the coherency engine
Oh, it's gentler.
inform the GPU
Cache-
of the
cache
overwritten
scrubbers.
ranges and custom scrubbers in several dozen GPU
I feel like we're getting
caches
cache
with
scrubbed out of our
input
pockets right
directions
now.
of address ranges. The best thing is, as a game developer, when you read from the SSD, you don't need to know any of this. You don't even need to know that your data is compressed. You just indicate what data you'd like to read from your original uncompressed file and where you'd like to put it, and the whole process of loading it happens invisibly to you and at very high speed. Back to the dream. Thanks to all of that surrounding hardware, our 5.5 gigabytes a second really should translate into something like 100 times faster I/O than PS4, and allow the dream of no load screens.
Show us the box.
Streaming to become a reality.
Please.
Having said that, expandability of our SSD is going to be quite important. Flash is costly, and you may very well want to add storage to whatever we put in the console. Now, the kind of storage you need depends on how you're going to use it. If you have an extensive PlayStation 4 library and you'd like to take advantage of backwards compatibility to play those games on PlayStation 5, then a large external hard drive is ideal. You can leave your games on the hard drive and play them directly from there, thus saving the pricier SSD storage for your PlayStation 5 titles, or you can copy your active PlayStation 4 titles to the SSD. If your purpose in adding more storage is to play PlayStation 5 titles, though, ideally you would add to your SSD storage. We will be supporting certain M2 SSDs. These are internal drives that you can get on the open market and install in a bay in the PlayStation 5. As for which ones we support and when, I'll get to that in a moment. They connect through the custom I/O unit just like our SSD does, so they can take full advantage of the decompression, I/O coprocessors, and all the other features I was talking about. Here's the catch, though. That commercial drive has to be at least as fast as ours. Games that rely on the speed of our SSD need to work flawlessly with any M2 drive. When I gave the Wired interview last year, I said that the PlayStation 5 SSD was faster than anything available on PC. At the time, commercial M2 drives used PCIe 3.0, and 4 lanes of that cap out at 3.5 gigabytes a second.
How
In other
pissed
words,
would you be if they
no
didn't even
PCIe
show the console?
3.0.
Looking likely, my man. So
M2 drives
that they're not going to show it. So
are now out in the market.
why so serious?
We're getting samples into
Because I'm the
4 or 5
Joker.
gigabytes a second from them. By year's end, I expect there will be drives that saturate 4.0 and support.
Very
7
likely
gigabytes.
that we won't see it.
Having said that, we are comparing.
It'd be cool if they would, but I think this talk was more for
that commercial
GDC.
M2 drive will have its own
I think we're going to get
architecture,
one
flash
more
controller,
keynote. This is just
For
my
example,
observation.
the NVMe specification lays out
Not an
the
insider here. I
largest
just wear a
M2
Garfield
drives
shirt
can use.
and I'm
And
streaming
that's
on the
really
internet, but
nice, but it
I
only
think they're just going to talk
has
specs right now,
two
and then they're going to show the console and maybe some like overview stuff. Like here's the games coming
hook
out
up a drive with only 2
in
drive
June
samples, definitely, but our
to replace
custom
E3,
IO
or maybe
units
earlier.
are
I don't know.
the extra priorities.
We're in a
rather
weird
than
world
the
right
M2
now.
drive's flash
I hope
controller.
so. Yeah.
And so the M2 drive needs a little extra speed to take care
I
of the
think
issues
some of these
that arise
developers are still
between
going to do some of these big
that commercial
streams
drive
in
also
June.
needs
I think
to
they're going to.
physically fit inside of the bay we created in PlayStation 5 for M2 drives. Unlike internal hard drives, there's unfortunately no standard for the height of an M2 drive, and some M2 drives have giant heat sinks. In fact, some of them even have their own fans.
N2
Right now,
drive
we're
sounds like a
getting
NASA
M2 drive
thing.
samples and benchmarking them in various ways. When games hit beta as they get ready for the PlayStation 5 launch at year end, we'll also be doing some compatibility testing to make sure that the architecture of particular M2 drives isn't too foreign for the games to handle. Once we've done that compatibility testing, we should be able to start letting you know which drives will physically fit and which drive samples have benchmarked appropriately high in our testing. It would be great if that happened by launch, but it's likely to be a bit past it. So please hold off on getting that M2 drive until you hear.
Hold off. Do not go to Best Buy right
Back to
now
our
and
principles.
pick it all up.
Balancing evolution and revolution is the
Sinsan says
This was definitely a
boring,
recurring theme with the GPU.
and a lot of Z's.
We need new GPU features and capabilities.
Sinsan, you're clearly not the 4 people that are hyped in the front row here for this big
Of course,
conference.
Many of these capabilities
They
result
haven't moved an
in
inch.
that's
They are
hardly
glued
PlayStation 5
to our
teraflops
buddy
more
Cerny here.
powerful than a PlayStation 4 teraflop. But we aren't just looking for the performance. We also need the ability to do something with the GPU that could not have been done before.
What are we going to
We
do?
need higher
Run Crisis
performance
on
per
this
watt.
thing?
Every time we double the performance of some GPU component, we don't want to find out we've doubled the power consumed and the heat produced. But at the same time, we have to make sure the GPU can run PS4 games, and we have to ensure
They're
that
not
the
real
architecture
people.
is easy for
That
them.
isn't nice to talk about those
Now,
4 people.
Backwards compatibility was
that
a
haven't moved an
massive
inch.
by AMD. They treated it as a key need.
They're
throughout
people,
the design
too.
process. As our solution to add
Half
new
the time
features
I
to
go for
platforms
streams for the
we develop,
conversation,
we made
content
sure that
helps,
if
but not
there
the main
were
thing for
new
me.
significant features, it would be optional.
Well, let's keep the conversation
The GPU
going as we're
supports ray
learning.
tracing, but you don't have to use ray tracing.
We're
to
getting
make
backwards
games.
compatibility. We
The
kind of knew
GPU
that
supports
already.
Primitive shaders, but you can release your first game. on
Let's
PlayStation
talk,
5
guys. I'm with
without
you,
the
M. Droby and Dorby.
Before I get into the capabilities
M.
of the
Dobry.
GPU, I'd like to make clear 2 points
Sorry.
that can be quite confusing. First, we
All right,
have a
teacher's
custom
about to speak.
AMD GPU based on their RDNA 2 technology. What does that mean? AMD is continuously improving and revising their tech. For RDNA 2, their goals were, roughly speaking, to reduce power consumption by re-architecting the GPU to put data close to where it's needed, to optimize the GPU for performance, and to add a new, more advanced feature set. But that feature set is malleable, which is to say that we have our own needs for PlayStation, and that can factor into what the AMD roadmap becomes. So collaboration is born. If we bring concepts to
I think
AMD
Sony's
that
making us a
felt
very
widely
education person
useful,
here. Yeah.
they can be adopted into
I feel like I'm going to pass the
and used
test,
broadly,
guys.
including in PC GPUs.
I think everyone by the end of this is
are
going to have a
specific
software
to what
development
you're
degree.
trying to accomplish, like the GPU cache scrubbers I was talking about. Then they end up being.
Karna says it's a conference mainly for developers, though.
If you see
Yes,
a
I think so
single
as well.
GPU
I think this was
available
supposed to
at
be a GDC
PC
thing.
roughly the same time as we were
Like they
using
mentioned at the
console.
beginning.
That means our collaboration with AMD's.
So I'm taking it. I came
introducing
in with that kind of
technology
expectation.
useful in
So
both worlds. It doesn't mean that we as Sony
nice
simply
sweatshirt.
incorporated
Thank
the PC
you.
port into our console.
Magenta?
This continuous improvement in AMD technology means it's dangerous.
Are you
to
really
rely on
doing a
hardware as an
test?
absolute
Yeah, we all
measure
are.
of performance.
At the end of this.
And CU
That's how
can
we
keep
get the
more
PS5 release
In the
date.
case of CPUs,
You have to answer,
all understand
pay
that
attention.
PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 each have 8 CPUs, but we never think
How many
that
gigaflops is
capabilities
this?
and
Do you
performance
know?
are equal. It's the same for CUs. For one thing, they've been
You
getting
better think
much
about that.
larger over time.
That'll be on the
Adding new
test.
features means adding lots of transistors. In fact, the transistor count for a PlayStation 5 CU is 62% larger than the transistor count for a PlayStation 4 CU. Second, the PlayStation 5 GPU
Hey, you.
is backwards compatible with PlayStation 4. What does that mean? One way you can achieve backwards compatibility
All right.
is to put the previous console's chipset in the new console.
Yeah, that was
like we
freaking
did with
cool.
some PlayStation 3s, but that's of course extremely expensive. A better
Wish you
way
did
is
it.
to incorporate any differences in the previous console's logic into the new console's custom chips, meaning that even as the technology evolves, the logic and feature set that PlayStation 4
Okay.
and PlayStation 4 Pro titles rely on is still available in backwards
PS3,
compatibility
PS2?
modes. One advantage of this strategy is that once backwards compatibility is in the console, it's in. It's not as if a cost down will remove backwards compatibility like it did on PlayStation 3. Achieving this unification
What about PS3,
functionality took
PS2?
years of
Figure it
efforts
out.
by AMD, as any roadmap advancement creates a potential divergence in logic. Running PS4 and
Corunna's
PS4
brain's
titles
getting
at
bigger.
boosted frequencies has also
I think
been
it's
proven.
impossible to listen to this guy
Boost is
and not have your
highly
brain get
massive
bigger.
this time around, and some game code just can't handle it. Testing has to be done on a title-by-title basis.
It's cool we're getting
Results
PS4
are
compatibility. As
excellent.
long as going
We
forward, I'm
recently
cool
took
with
a look
that.
at the top 100 PlayStation 4 titles as ranked by playtime, and we're expecting almost all of them to be playable at launch on PlayStation 5.
Yes.
With regards
Almost
to new
all.
features, as I said,
Who's getting
our
left out?
strategy was to try to break new ground,
One of the Maddens.
but at the same time not to require use of the new GPU capabilities. For more than
See, that's a real
decade,
person. He just
GPUs
rubbed
have
his ear.
imposed a restriction
Do
on
fake people rub their
gaming.
ears?
Software handles vertex processing, but for the most part, dedicated hardware is responsible for the triangles and other geometries.
Those are the true fans that braved
That means
this
it's not possible to do
quarantine
even basic optimizations
to get out there.
such as aborting processing of the vertex.
Hello,
if
Anne.
all geometry that uses it is off screen. PlayStation 5 has a new unit.
Yeah, he is
called
moving
the
down there.
Geometry Engine, which brings handling of triangles and other
The girl
parameters
just
under
moved.
full programmatic control. As a game developer, you're free to ignore its existence and use the PlayStation 5 GPU as if it were no more capable than the PS4 GPU. Or
Now, will they clap at the
GPU
end?
versions
Did they get clap? The
Simple
animation.
uses
I almost said
of
animation, but that's not true. These are real people.
Off-screen vertices and triangles. More complex uses.
People really expected the PS5, PS3, and PS2 backwards compatibility. It would have been nice, but we can work with PS4 and everything moving forward,
Using
just
primitive
backwards
shaders in
compatible.
PlayStation 5 will allow for a broad variety of techniques, including
Is Travis and everyone staying home because social distancing? Yes.
to close-up objects,
Yes,
and
we are.
particle effects and other visual special effects. Another major new
We
feature
want to
of
know
our
the
custom
specs,
RDNA
not why
2
the
GPU
specs.
is ray tracing, using the same strategy as AMD's upcoming PC GPUs. The CUs contain
Now, ray
new
tracing is
specialized
freaking
unit
nuts.
called
This is pretty. If you guys haven't, like, look up some YouTube video, or they might show. They might show a video. I don't know what they'll do, but ray tracing. Oh my gosh.
An acceleration structure. It's data in RAM that contains all of your geometry.
It
There's
is
a
like
specific
real
set of programs
time
you can use. They're
lighting stuff on
variations
every.
on
Ugh.
the BVH concept.
It is nuts that
Then,
they're
in
able
your
to do
shader
this.
program, you use a new instruction. that
This will be
asks
one of the
next
crazier
execution
things
to
next
check
gen.
array against the BVH.
I'm telling you, go
Well,
watch
the
a video on ray
intersection engine
tracing
is
after this.
processing the requested ray triangle or ray box intersections.
But yeah,
The shaders are free
in
to
Dobry,
do
we are
Having said that, the ray tracing
The Dweebros
instructions
are
pretty
separated,
intensive, so it's
like
a
Death
good
Stranding.
mix with logic-heavy code. There's of
Ray
course
tracing
no
is just
need
crazy.
to
Yes,
use
it
ray
is.
tracing. PS4 graphics engines will
Full
run
ray
just fine
tracing,
on
reflections,
But
shadows.
it presents an opportunity for those interested.
Now they were pretty big when they
It'll
first
take
was talking
less
about
than
specs.
a
When
million
they
rays a
Cerny was kind of
second
first
to
talking, he
do
said,
that.
"Hey,
That
3D
can
audio is going to be
audio
kind of the
occlusion
like you think
and
ray
some
tracing is
favorite
crazy.
population.
3D audio is going to be
With a
nuts."
bit more of the GPU invested in ray tracing, it should be
So
possible
I'm-
to do some very nice global.
I wonder if we'll talk more about the audio stuff, because he seemed pretty freaking nuts about that.
Adding
So
ray-traced shadows and reflections to a traditional graphics engine.
Speaking of
would
audio,
usually take hundreds of millions of rays a second. And
there's some
full
good
ray
headphones. The PlayStation
How far
Gold.
do we go?
I got them when they did the PlayStation 1 kind of classic. These things are great. I use this for like the chat and stuff, or chatting online. They're great. And it works on PC.
Another set of issues for the GPU involved size and frequency. How big do we make the GPU, and what frequency do we run it at? This is
Make
a
it as
balancing act. The
make
chip
it a
has cost,
big
and the
old
cost of
GPU.
whatever we use to supply that
Big as a
chip
suitcase.
to power and to cool it. In general, I like running the GPU at higher frequency. Let me show you why.
Show me.
Here's two possible configurations for a GPU roughly of the level of the PlayStation 4 Pro. This is a thought experiment. Don't take these configurations too seriously.
It's just a thought experiment, guys.
Teraflops, you get the same.
Chill out.
But actually, the performance is noticeably different because teraflops is defined as the computational capability of the vector ALU. That's just one part of the GPU. There are a lot of other units. And those other units all run faster when the GPU frequency is higher. At 33% higher frequency, rasterization goes 33% faster. Processing the command buffer goes that much faster. The L2 and other caches have that much higher bandwidth.
Oh, the L2 cache.
About the only downside is that system
One of my favorite
is
caches.
33% further away in terms of cycles. But the large number of benefits more than counterbalance that. As a friend of mine says, a rising tide lifts all boats.
A friend of mine said, a rising tide lifts all boats.
CUs in parallel than it is to fully use 48
This dude is
CUs.
dropping knowledge. I hope you guys are taking your notes. This will be on the test.
All those CUs with
The
useful
PlayStation 5 test.
So there's a lot to be said for faster, assuming you can handle the resulting power and heat issues, which frankly, we haven't always done the best job at. Part of the reason for that is, historically, our process for setting CPU and GPU frequencies has relied on some heavy-duty guesswork with regards to how much electrical power games will consume and how much heat will be produced as a result inside of the console. Power consumption varies a lot from game
Whoa,
to game.
we can load
When I
cars.
play God of War on my
Lone
PS4
nukes
Pro,
is okay.
I know
Lone
power
guns a little bit
consumption
more.
is
Bows and
just
arrows
like
take a
that.
lot, and
But
axes
power isn't simply about engine
are going to
power.
take the most.
It's about the minutia of what's being displayed.
Apparently on that graph.
It's counterintuitive, but processing dense geometry typically consumes less power than processing simple geometry, which is, I suspect, why Horizon's map screen, with its low triangle count, makes my PS4 Pro heat up so much.
Calling out Horizon.
Previous consoles has been to try
Whoa.
to guess what the maximum power
Making my
consumption
PS4
during the
heat
entire
up.
console lifetime might be, which is to say, the
Why didn't they show the
worst
console from the
case
beginning and then
and
talk about the
worst case
specs?
game, and prepare
Lopez, I believe what they're doing, this was supposed to be for GDC, for developers. I believe we'll get another keynote. I don't think they'll show it
If we get it
here.
wrong, the console will be
I think we're getting another keynote in
and
June-ish.
there's even a chance that it might
That's gonna show the
shut
console.
down if we misestimate.
This was more for developers, and they had to push it back because
PlayStation
GDC.
5 is especially
crap.
challenging because the CPU supports 256-bit native instructions that consume a lot of power. These are great here and
But
there.
I don't know.
but
Maybe they will show it, but I don't. I think this is more on spec stuff.
Or are they? If we plan for major 256-bit
Depending on how
instructions,
good you guys do on this
we need
test,
to
this is
set
our
the
teacher, our
CPU
online
clock
teacher.
substantially lower, or
We'll see.
noticeably increase the size of the power supply and fan. So, after much discussion, we decided to go with a very different direction on
Uh-oh.
PlayStation 5.
What are we doing?
We built a GPU with 36 CUs. Mind you, RDNA 2 CUs are large. Each has 62% more transistors than the CUs we were using on PlayStation 4. So, if we compare transistor counts, 36 RDNA 2 CUs
Oh my
equates
gosh.
to roughly 58 PlayStation 4 CUs. It is a fairly sizable GPU.
Jeez.
Then we went with a variable frequency strategy for PlayStation 5, which is to say we continuously run the GPU and CPU in boost mode. We supply a generous amount of electrical power and then increase the frequency of GPU and CPU until they reach the capabilities of the system's cooling solution. It's a completely different paradigm. Rather than running at constant frequency and letting power vary based on the workload, we run at essentially constant power and let the frequency vary based on the workload. We then tackled the engineering challenge of a cost-effective and high-performance cooling solution designed for that specific power level. In some ways, it becomes a simpler problem because there are no more unknowns. There's no need to guess what power consumption the worst-case game might have. As for the details of the cooling solution, we're saving them for our teardown. I think you'll be quite happy with what the engineering team came up with.
There you go.
So, how fast...
The teardown thing is going to be a separate
and CPU with this
stuff. They're not going to show.
The simplest approach would be to look at the actual temperature of the silicon die and throttle the frequency on that basis. But that won't work.
Wow, stuck on you right now, searching for some PS5 reactions. Do you expect PS5 showcase? Nope. I expect it at a later event.
So rather than look at
around
the
June.
temperature of the silicon die, we look at the
Again, I'm a guy in a Garfield shirt.
and CPU are performing.
I don't have all the answers, but I think it's going to be a June-ish.
Which makes everything deterministic.
We will see it.
and repeatable. While we're at it, we also use AMD's Smart Shift technology and send any unused power from the CPU to the GPU so it can squeeze out a few more pixels. The benefits of this strategy are quite large. Running a GPU at 2 gigahertz was looking like an unreachable target with the old fixed frequency strategy.
I
With
agree.
this new paradigm, we're able to run way over that. In fact, we have to cap the GPU frequency at 2.23 gigahertz so that we can guarantee that the on-chip logic operates properly. 36
Good call.
CPUs at 2.23 gigahertz is 10.3 teraflops, and we expect the GPU to spend most of its time at or close to that frequency and performance.
It's a lot of flops.
Similarly,
It's a lot of flopping
running
around.
the CPU at 3 gigahertz was causing headaches with the old strategy. But now we can run it as high as 3.5 gigahertz. In fact, it spends most of its time at
Anyway, the info we're getting right now is
That
awesome.
doesn't mean all games
I hope
will
it
be
will cost
running
less than
2.23
500.
gigahertz and 3.5 gigahertz. When that worst case
I
arrives,
think
it will run at a lower cost.
I think this thing's going to be
But not too
500.
much lower. To reduce power by 10%.
I think
it only
450
takes
and
a
that
couple
thing
of
is, like,
reduction in frequency.
Going off
So
the
I'd
shelves,
expect
but I
it
think
down
people will
a lot.
still buy it at 5. I will still buy it at 5.
All things considered, the change to a
I've
variable
loved the PS4, like I've
frequency
said
approach will show
earlier in the
significant
stream, but
gains for
so I'm in. But
The
I think
final
we're looking
of
at
the
5.
principles was about finding new dreams.
I think we're looking at
important
5.
for us on the hardware team to find new ways to expand or deepen gaming, and that's what led us to a focus on 3D audio. As players, we experience the game through the visuals, through audio, and through the feedback we receive from the controller, such as rumble or haptics. Personally, I feel a game is just dead without audio. Visuals are, of course, important.
Okay, here's the thing he
impact of
keeps
audio
going
is
crazy
huge
about. So
as
listen
well.
up. It's going to be on the
At the
test.
same time, the audio team on a game project has to do a lot with a little. For example, on PlayStation 4, there's fierce competition for the Jaguar CPU cores. Audio typically ends up getting just a fraction of a core. That's not much of a computational resource, particularly when you consider that the visuals run at 30 or 60 frames a second, but audio processing needs to happen at almost 200 times a second. So, it's been tough going making forward progress on audio with PlayStation 4, particularly when PlayStation 3 was such a beast when it came to audio. The SPUs in Cell were almost a perfect device for audio rendering. Simple pipelined algorithms could really take advantage of asynchronous DMA and frequently reached 100% utilization of the floating point unit. There's unfortunately nothing comparable on PlayStation 4. Probably the most dramatic progress in the PlayStation 4 generation has been with virtual reality.
Oh, love the
PSVR
PSVR.
hardware has its own audio unit.
Are you guys big
Supports
PS4,
about 50
PSVR
pretty
fans?
3D sound sources.
Man,
And this
for
provides
us.
a hint as to where we could go with audio, as well as some valuable experience.
I'm a common man. Come on, Sony. Broke my heart.
But here were our goals.
We are common.
on PlayStation.
We are common men
The
and
first
women, but
goal
guess
was
what?
Great audio for everyone.
He is
Not just VR
making us
users
more
or
than
soundbar
common.
owners or headphone users.
He's
That
giving
kind
us
of audio
knowledge.
had to be part of the console. It couldn't be a peripheral. The second goal was to support hundreds of sound sources. We didn't want developers to have to pick and choose what sounds would get 3D effects and which wouldn't. We wanted every sound in the game to have dimensionality.
Jeez.
And finally, we wanted to really take
Social
on the
Gamer says
challenges
boring.
of presence and locality.
Social Gamer, how's
Now,
this
when we say
social
presence,
distancing
we
going
mean
for you
the
right
feeling
now?
that you're actually there. You've entered the matrix. It's not, of course, something we thought we could perfectly achieve, but the idea was that if we stopped using just
That 3D audio is going to be crazy for the
and
next
instead
PSVR
use
thing.
lots
Oh
of
my
3D
gosh.
audio sources for raindrops hitting the ground and all sorts of locations around you, then at some point your brain would take a leap and you'd begin to have this feeling.
Oh, shit.
This feeling of real presence inside the virtual world.
Oh
of the
my
game.
gosh.
This has the
PSVR 2.
capacity to affect
Jeez,
the
it's going to be
situation of the
great.
game, just like
Social Gamer
music
says it's
in
going
movies.
great.
The concept of locality is simpler. It's just your
I think
sense
you
of
should change your name to
audio
Social
telling you
Distance
something.
Gamer.
Right of you, behind you,
Then,
above you. This can
I'm glad at
immerse you
least
further in
the
game,
Xbox isn't
and it
as
can also
underpowered. I'm a
directly
PC gamer, and sadly our
enhance
games are limited by consoles.
to use
So for
Dead
them to be
Space as an
powerful, but
example,
surprised the
I know,
Xbox is
old
way more
school.
powerful. Is the
You're
Xbox
fighting
way more
enemies
powerful?
in fairly dark, spooky locations. Back in the day, if you played the game using the TV speakers, you could tell that there was one last enemy growling and hunting you down, but it was difficult to tell quite where that enemy was. With headphones, you could tell that the enemy was somewhere on the right, which let you deduce, if you couldn't see it, that it must be somewhere behind and to your right. But with 3D audio with good locality, the idea is you know the enemy is precisely there, and you turn and
There.
you take it out. So, how do we know where a sound is coming
This is
from
cool.
in the first place?
Especially for
Well,
VR.
all those bumps and folds in the ear have a meaning, evolutionarily speaking, based on what direction the
The
sound
dude
is
giving the
coming
conference,
from,
I know, I feel like they
something
should get
happens
someone a
in the ear,
bit more
there's
exciting.
some
Hey,
constructive and destructive interference,
Rungeon,
and the
just
result is a change
Rungeon.
in volume. The phase
Sit back, this
of
is the inventor of
depending on
ASMR.
what path the sound waves
Just let
take
him
to
soothe
reach
ya.
the ear canal. These volume
They're gonna have
changes
somebody screaming
may
at you when they
shift
show the console,
different
don't
for
worry.
each direction and also vary depending on the frequency of
How
the
many
sound.
FPS is on
Head size
PS5?
and head shape also impact the sound in a similar fashion.
I feel like it's still gonna be like
The way
30
that the
frames,
sound
60
changes
frames, back and
based on
forth.
direction and frequency can be encoded in a table called the head
Yeah,
related
look them up. It's not a huge difference, but as a dead, you'll notice it.
Here's part of one. The vertical axis is the frequency.
Xbox got 12 flops, we
The
only got 10
horizontal
flops.
axis is the direction
On PlayStation
or
5?
right, and the color gives the degree
Slower
of
bandwidth,
attenuation of the
transfer
sound
memory.
at that frequency. The
Thank you for that.
HRTF
Thank you for that
is
run,
unique
Rungeon.
to an individual as a fingerprint is. In fact, you're looking at mine right now. Here's how we measure an HRTF. We've
Oh my
taken
gosh.
hundreds of people through this process. We
Looks like
put a
torture
microphone
chamber.
in the subject's left and right ear canals, and then sit the subject down in the middle of
And
an
show him
array of
propaganda
22
until he screams
we
and
then
admits he's
play an
buying the
audio
PlayStation
sweep
5.
from each speaker as we rotate the subject. In the course of 10 or 20 minutes, we're able to sample the HRTF.
When he
and
gives
over
up, after 10
1,000
minutes, we
locations.
take his credit card.
Using an HRTF
and we purchase
in
the
rendering
PlayStation
audio
5.
creates unparalleled quality, but it's computationally expensive.
Re-education is
The
complete.
simplest way to use an HRTF is to process a sound source to make it appear as if it's coming from one of those 1,000 locations. we
Jeez,
said.
ew.
Unfortunately,
This is gonna be
the
awesome
processing
for
has to be done
PSVR.
with
They should just say, hey,
frequency rather
PSVR
than
2 is gonna be
so there's multiple
tight.
fast Fourier transforms needed for every sound source for every audio tick. That's a lot of multiplies. This computational complexity was the determining factor
Honestly, with
for our
consoles,
strategy.
I find it's the type of
Like
game
bullet
you're
and
into.
design
Yeah,
and build a custom
the specs are
hardware.
cool to hear. This is awesome to hear, and I think when I was younger, I cared more about, very cared about like the specs. Like, oh, is this better than this console?
3D.
Even Xbox
The
Series
meaning
or
of 3D
Xbox
audio
X,
and technology
Xbox
should be
One
very
X
obvious here. As for
is kind of the
tennis,
best
I feel
console to
like
play
it
on, like
really
4K
reflects
wise
the
versus the
goals of
PS4
audio.
Pro.
It suggests a certain
But man, the
intensity
PlayStation
of
library,
experience and also hints at your
unbelievable.
presence.
Unbelievable. So I
The
agree with that.
hardware unit that we built, the
I agree with you,
Tennis,
Rungeon.
it's based on AMD's GPU technology. We
Best
modified a complete
YouTube
unit
in the
such a
world.
way
Love you,
as
bro.
to make
Thank
it
you,
very
bro.
close
To
to the
TV.
SPUs in PlayStation 3. Remember when I said that they were ideal for audio? So the
I agree on that
Tennis
PSVR
engine
too.
has
Oh,
real caches,
who has
just
the
like
PSVR? That thing is awesome.
Data access
I think
and
it's starting to show its age, but I played Blood and Truth the
Our
other day.
target was
That thing
that
is
it would
awesome.
have more power
Ugh,
than a
so good.
CPU, thanks to the parallelism that a GPU can achieve.
Do you think they'll improve
And
the
it would be
controller,
more
like a
efficient
touchscreen
than
or
a
something like
GPU,
that?
thanks to the SPU library.
My big hope. Where's the
goal
controller?
being to make possible near 100%
PS4 controller
elimination
here.
of the CUs.
Make this thing to where it doesn't have to turn on. That thing destroys the battery. Having the LED light on, oh my gosh.
All 8 Jaguar cores in the PlayStation 4.
Other than that, I don't know. I really
If
love the
they use
PS4
same
controller.
algorithms
So
as PSVR, that's enough.
they might have some new. They might have some new touch stuff. I feel like they'll add something
we
there.
want to use more complex algorithms, and we don't need anything like that number of sounds.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. I'm not crapping on
It would
console
have
gamers.
been
I used to be
wonderful
one, but
if a
most
simpler strategy, such as
really care about
using
Core
Dolby
Beta.
Atmos
It's seeing the
peripherals
games
would have
running.
achieved our goals.
Yep.
We wanted 3D audio for all,
Yep,
not
yep,
just
yep.
those with licensed sound bars or the like. Also, we wanted many hundreds of sound sources, not just the 30.
Should I get now? Is
Finally,
one
we
thing I'm
wanted to be
confused
able
on.
to throw an overwhelming
I've got
amount
just
of
stereo
power
speakers,
problem.
left
It
and
wasn't
right,
clear what
beside my
our
television.
peripheral might have inside of it.
Should
In fact, with
I
Tempest
get
Engine,
a
we
surround
even
sound
got
type
power that we could
deal?
allocate
I don't even know how that would
games,
hook up in
to
here.
the
It'd be
extent that
a
games
nightmare
want
to hook
make
up.
use of convolution reverb and other algorithms that are either
But I feel like a surround sound with this
or
new
hybrid.
crap they're doing is going to
But the
be
primary
unreal.
purpose
It's going to
of
be
the
like
Tempest Engine
unbelievable.
remains 3D audio. Now, 3D audio is a major academic research topic. It's safe to say that no one in the world has all of the answers.
So
The set
PS5
of
games that you
algorithms
can't
have
live
to be
without.
invented,
Which ones are you
tuned, or
getting?
implemented to
I don't know.
realize the vision for 3D
I would
audio
like
is
to
immense. For example, use of
get
HRTFs in games.
when they're going to
Talked
remaster
about
Last
making
of Us,
sound sources
Cyberpunk,
appear
and
as if it's
Final
coming,
Fantasy because they're so
from
close
one
to
of those
launch.
1,000 HRTF
I think those I would like to play.
But for high
I
quality,
feel like those are going to be great games. I'd like to replay
we
those
have to handle other possibilities.
again.
The sound source might not be at one of the 1,000 HRTF.
But I don't know. I don't know what's
locations,
coming.
So we have to blend the HRTF data from the closest
I do not know
locations
what they're gonna
and
do.
have sound. The sound source might be moving, which needs very special handling as that blend.
Jeez, I don't know what
and
the
then
frick I'm
things
looking
like
at.
that in the
Does
result.
anyone know what I'm looking at?
Or the sound source might have a size to it, meaning it should feel as if it's coming from an area rather than.
Does anyone look at that and just feel more dumb, or is it
There's
just me?
also whole categories of approaches.
Fortnite 2, yeah, that thing's gonna
3D
run.
audio can be implemented using individual
You're gonna be able to do
processes for 3D sound
like
sources.
flossing is
But
gonna be in 90 frames per
alternatively,
second in that game.
ambisonics can be used for 3D audio. Ambisonics being somewhat like the spherical harmonics used in computer graphics. And finally, there's audio devices. The player might be using headphones or TV speakers or have a higher end surround sound setup with 6 or more speakers, all of which need different approaches. That's a lot of variations. It's nice to have the computational resources of the Tempest engine, but it's clear that achieving our ultimate goals with 3D audio is going to be a multi-year, step-by-step process. Having said that, headphone audio implementation is largely complete at this time. It was a natural place for us to start. With headphones, we control exactly what each ear hears, and therefore the algorithm
Okay, yeah.
and implementation.
Screw the surround sound stuff I just asked you guys. I'm just gonna use my freaking headphones I got. So I think those have 3D audio already.
Virtual surround sound. The idea being that if you're sitting in a sweet spot in front of the TV, then the sound can be made to feel as if it's coming from any direction, even behind you. Virtual surround sound has a lot in common with 3D audio on headphones, but it's more complex because the left ear can hear the right speaker and vice versa. We have a basic implementation of virtual surround sound up and running. We're now looking at increasing the size of that sweet spot, which is to say, making the area you need to be in to feel the 3D effect larger, and we're also working to boost the sense of locality. Headphone audio is the current gold standard for 3D audio on PlayStation 5, but we're going to see what we can do to bring virtual surround sound to a similar level, after which we'll start in on setups with more speakers, such as 6-channel surround sound. It's now to the point where some of the PlayStation 5 games in development are extensively using these systems. One of the game demos allows you to toggle between conventional PlayStation 4 style stereo audio and our new 3D audio. I listened with just an ordinary pair of over-the-ear headphones, and wow, I could feel a difference. 3D audio has that dimensional feel to it. Conventional stereo audio feels smashed flat by comparison. The improvement is obvious. So, a big advancement, but have I entered the matrix? Does my brain believe I'm really there? Like I was talking about earlier when I explained our target of presence.
Okay, sorry about that.
The answer is no. But you've probably caught.
I thought I was going to ask, what am I watching this for? I don't know.
Whose HRTF
Hobbit?
was being used? It wasn't mine. It was the
Can't wait for a year
HRTF.
when the devs
The
come to
audio
terms with the
team
hardware.
analyzed
Yeah,
the hundreds
it's
of
fun.
videos
It
and
takes
chose
about a
the
year,
one
huh?
the closest fit to the total game playing audience.
HC9, dude, I just realized something. The guy had to practice presentation multiple times as well, yeah.
On the right, you can see
Well,
that
I
the
think when they're
general
cutting, I
is
think
much the
he's
same,
doing a stretch
but
of
the
it
details
maybe.
are quite
And then they're cutting and just, they put it
With the
together
default
and
HRTF,
editing.
As I said, the 3D audio sounds pretty great. When I use my HRTF, though, the audio reaches a higher level of realism, which is to say that when using
I like the one on the right, definitely.
I occasionally get fooled and even think a sound
I would have been fooled as well, but now that I've got Cerny vision.
A corollary to this is that there are a few people whose HRTFs are sufficiently far from the default HRTF, that's the red dot here, that they can toggle between ps5.
It better show something. HT9, I don't think you're going to get anything, my friend.
I've had
I think this was supposed to be for developers.
ps5's 3D audio is sounding like a bit better stereo audio.
You're busy with your smartphone. It's crazy. Sorry about that, Mohammed. I got something I've got to take care of. I apologize. So I'm like checking in and out on that. So boring. How about a round of Gwent? I didn't even know Gwent came out. When did Gwent come out?
That means HRTF selection and
love Cyberpunk, or not Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red stuff. So how was Gwent? How is Gwent going?
At PlayStation 5 launch, we'll be offering a choice of 5 HRTFs.
Witcher 3. Witcher 3 is great.
Pick the one that gives you the best locality. That's just the first step, though. This is an open-ended research topic. Maybe you'll be sending us a photo of your ear, and we'll choose a neural network to pick the closest HRTF in our library.
All right, everybody send a photo of your ear to Cerny@Sony.com.
And your head, and we'll make a 3D model of them and synthesize the HRTF. Maybe you'll play an audio game to tune your HRTF. We'll be subtly changing it as you play, and home in on the HRTF that gives you the highest score.
Dude, I told you this, guys.
That it matches you the best.
What did I say?
This
ASMR creator.
Taking together over the next few years.
This guy's want you to send pictures of your ear to him.
Everyone to experience that next.
Oh my gosh!
Realism.
They're gonna put a mold of your ear into
I've been able to illustrate
the PS5.
about our design and
Jeez.
decision-making process
Jeez.
today, and why PlayStation 5 has
Oh my
the
gosh.
features that it does. Now comes the fun part. We get to see how the development community takes advantage of that feature set. I'm hoping for the completely unexpected. Will it come from audio, ray tracing, the capabilities of the SSD, or something else? I guess we'll find out soon enough. Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Okay. So like I said, I think we're getting another stream thing here in June that's going to show the console. Lots of videos we can watch right here. Yeah. Audio sounds crazy. It seemed to like more just in depth of what they already said. We knew 3D audio was going to be a big deal. We knew ray tracing was going to be in there. But again, this was supposed to be for GDC, so I think a lot of people came into this thinking it was going to be the PS5 reveal. I didn't know. I thought more is probably going to be... They kept mentioning specs, so whatever. Thanks, Mohammed. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for everybody that joined in the chat. Say hello. Say what you think. I'll stream for just a second longer and we'll end it. But thanks for joining us. He looks like boring Danny Elfman. If you're talking about Cerny, I must say I protect Cerny at all cost. Please don't talk about the ASMR King. I feel like I know everything now about audio. Ask me anything about audio, and I'll tell you. What will be the price of the PS5? I'm saying $500. I'm putting all my chips in. That thing is going to be $500. I mean, you talked for an hour just about the ears, what this thing's going to do to your freaking ears. That sounds like a $500 console to me, doesn't it? You? But yeah, I feel like June, check back in. I think they're going to do a full reveal of the box and stuff, which is weird because we already have seen the Xbox. I think something yesterday they showed even more comparisons around the box of the Xbox. So maybe it comes sooner than June. Maybe they show the box sooner than June. Maybe they are still waiting for a price for the new Xbox. Maybe they're waiting for that. I think they are. I think they're going to try to undercut it if they can of the next Xbox. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed. It's kind of a weird stream. I think it's a weird time right now. But thanks for joining. And so on this channel, I do Hangouts, kind of like what we did today with this, but I will just be playing games. So the main screen will be the whole game, and then I'll be in the corner, and I'll talk with you guys in the chat, And this is just me playing like kind of long form a game for an hour and a half. But now with the changes in the world right now, the hangouts are longer. So I'll jump in, we just chat and stuff. We also do a podcast monthly where me and we call ourselves the Dewey Bros. We do a podcast just talking about games, TV shows, movies for the month. So if you could, subscribe if you'd like and join us. We have a lot of fun. Click like on the video, all that stuff. Really appreciate it. When will they officially launch the PS5? They've already said holiday, so I'm thinking November. I'm calling November, $500, get ready. I will say with the weird stuff going on with pandemic stuff in the world, I don't know, will stuff get pushed back this year? Will we figure it out by then? I don't know, but now that the sun has rose up today, I'm going to say November, you're going to be playing the PS5. But again, thank you. DweeboYT on Twitter. Find out when we're going live with Hangouts, which is when I just play a game, pick out a game, and start talking over it. Talk about it, whatever. Basically a Let's Play, whatever. I make up names for everything. And then, yeah. So, again, thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys back at some of those Hangouts. I will definitely be doing more reactions whenever, keeping my ear to the ground. Is that the saying? What did that guy say? The rising tide raises all boats. So we're going to be raising all boats come E3 time. Because I feel like more directs, everybody's going to be doing a Nintendo Direct style thing around there. So that's it. Thanks for watching. And send all your ear molds to Cerny so we can get